Hello and welcome to the finale of the 2019 Go-Kart Championship, and the championship is all up for grabs. If we look at the last round, we saw that the championship was down between 30 points between myself and John, and Tom L was not out of the battle as well. But unfortunately for the championship, Tom said just a couple of days before the final round of the season he could not make it, so that automatically counts him out of the standings, and does give George an opportunity to finish third place overall in the standings, along with my dad. So it means it's a 1v1 battle between myself and John for the championship. The points are weighed in my favour. I currently have a 30-point lead, 272 points over 242 for John. But it's still all up for grabs. There's 25 points each for a race victory, and 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, etc. points for the fastest lap in Lydd because of the format change. So it's all up for grabs here. Either of us could be champion. 58 points total up for grabs, and with that gap only being 30, you can do the maths yourself. It's going to be an interesting couple of races. So you're sent out the pits in this order: George, my dad, John, then myself. Unfortunately, a few people dropped out right before the last round, meaning only 4 people attended this round at Lydd, but nonetheless it was good fun. So we've done this out lap, and it's away and starting the race properly, because we all said to ourselves that we wouldn't overtake on that out lap just to make sure there's no spins and accidents and that sort of stuff. So on board with myself here and trying to get past John as quickly as possible. I realised this is the championship battle between us, so I wanted to get past him. I thought I did have the speed, so I wanted to get that overtake done as quickly as possible. So now George is leading ahead of my dad. I'm in third, and fourth place is John. So round the tricky sort of top elbow part of the track, where it's just a really long right-hander, just keeps on going. You've just got to get the line through there right, and it's sort of like a reverse one here, where it's the same sort of thing, a long left-hander. I really enjoy this track. I was speaking about Bayford Meadows as well, wondering which was my favourite. I think this one might be, but side by side, my dad, I have the superior straight line speed. Unfortunately, that does kind of just come down to the weight, I think, around the corner, and just getting a better line through there. But there we are into second place now, to try and get past George to get into the lead of this race here. As I said, I felt like I did have good pace, so I wanted to get the overtakes done quickly, and I'm side by side with George there and get past him pretty easily. So there we are, on board with John as he's trying to make an overtake around the outside of my dad. John knows he's probably got the pace as well here. I think he says himself Lydd's a good track for him, and I think he's had some podiums here in the past as well. It's always been quite close between my dad and him. So in this race, I think we should be looking forward to a good battle between the two of them here. But at this early stage, it looks like it's John who has the upper hand, which is interesting, because if we look back to Filching just last time out, it was John coming out of the block slowly and then getting quicker as the race went on. But this time he's coming out the blocks a lot faster than the other two people here that he's sort of battling to try and get the top 2 positions here. But I managed to pull out front. Had a really solid pace on. I was really happy with that, and you can see I'm sort of going off into the distance. But this is the track I really enjoy. Really sort of make my precise movements about exactly where I'm going to go, and I think I hope the lap times reflect it. So it's getting close here between my dad and George, and also John as well. So it's a nice 3-way battle here for second position. On board with my dad here. Once again, the camera slightly angled down too much, but as George is going through the right-hander, Dad manages to close up a little bit, then as soon as you get to a straight line he's losing a bit of time. I think also part of this is my dad sort of ducking down to try and get a bit of better straight line speed, but you can see how much he's wrestling the kart here through the long left and then switch right before the long straight. I'm on board with John as he can look for the overtake to the inside. He's in the slipstream, well and truly in the slipstream. On the brakes, he's not going to go past there. I think my dad was turning into that corner. I think that would have been a bit of a silly move from John, so it's really clever that he pulled out of that one, because that could have been an accident. But you see my dad kind of misses the racing line for the first couple of corners here. John sort of got the racing line all sorted there. Maybe not quite as brave on the brakes as he could have been into some corners, but he's definitely got the racing line sorted out here. And George is, still not quite on his racing lines yet. But John's looking to the inside, trying to get past there. Maybe a bit cheeky, but still, it was definitely a good opportunistic move if it paid off. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. See, once again, my dad wrestling the kart, trying to get past George here. He knows that he needs to get a good run around this sequence of corners onto the back straight, just have a chance as they go across the start-finish line on the parallel straight. So Down the back straight, he's just trying to get the slipstream and keep as close to George as possible. But John is doing a really good job at staying with him with the corner before. And in the slipstream, he's managing to really keep up it. But the thing is, it's such a late braking zone into that corner. You're hardly braking at all, really, which is crazy because you're going so fast. But it's just sort of a bit of a short dab on the brakes, and then you sort of go through that corner carrying a lot of momentum. So now John trying to look to the outside of my dad. There's not any space there. I don't think my dad really knows that John's here at this point, because the racing line he's taking isn't really in the sort of normal, spirit that he's normally doing. He doesn't really cut people off, and I'm not really saying he's cutting people off there, but I don't think he had any idea John was trying to go for these overtakes here at all. I think he might have been slightly oblivious because obviously your eyes are looking forward. So back on board with myself here. I'm just pulling out a nice advantage here, trying to put in the consistent lap times. And I'm pretty happy with them, as I said already. I know I made quite a few mistakes at the Bayford round earlier on, even though I did get some good points there, and obviously both victories and qualifying on pole. But I also feel like there were a few too many mistakes creeping in here. But at Lydd, I was quite happy with my pace and the consistency. It was all good for me. So now John, again, trying to put the pressure on. He's going to have to try and do something inventive here to get past my dad, because by the look of it, they're close enough in speed that John can't capitalise on his inherent speed advantage, which of course is there, but I don't think it's enough. You can see he's trying to look one way or the next. This corner's really tricky. Do you go inside or out? Because you can even go around the outside of people there if you've got enough speed. On board with my dad here, he's really struggling to get past George here. I think George is just quick in the right areas to stay ahead, which is of course frustrating, but there's nothing you can really do about it. You've just got to try and make an overtake where you are quicker. The thing is, he's losing quite a lot of time in the part of the lap where, George isn't obviously inherently quicker. He's losing so much time there, he's not really close enough by the points he is quicker. So it's a bit of an annoying cycle for him right now, and John's getting stuck up behind him. So let's see what happens over the next couple of laps. As I said, it's a 15-minute race here. We're not even halfway into this one here. So these are long races, and the inflated points are because of that. The longer races get more points. It's changed from last year where every single race was awarded the same points, because I don't think you should be getting the same points for a 15-minute race here as a 3-minute race at Brooklands. It didn't seem fair, so we changed up the point system, and I think it's better because of it. On board with John once again. He's really putting the pressure on here to try and get this overtake done. It looks like he's got better speed through here. He's taking a slightly better line through this part of the track, and that's giving him more momentum down this back straight. This is a good run here. This could be John's best chance of an overtake here into the last sequence of corners. Oh, it's close, very close. My dad just steers in, doesn't hit the apex. I think he realised John was there at the last minute, meaning he did leave him a bit of space. But now these two fighting is actually giving George enough of a gap that they're not really that close to him. They're not really in the opportunity to get past him if George makes a mistake. So this little battle here is actually costing them time here, which is interesting. And of course John probably realises the championship is slightly slipping out of his reach at this point. He needs to go for these overtakes. He's trying to make some bold ones, but the thing is, both experienced kart drivers at this point, we realise on a very amateur level, but still experienced. The amount of kart laps we've done. So, not making too many silly mistakes nowadays. So that's going to make it very tricky to make an overtake happen when they are so closely matched on speed. Even though I do think John does have a nice, at least half a second advantage right now, he just can't make that stick because it's just the way the track's laid out. He's not being able to make the most of it. So George has had a bit of a leery couple of corners there. He's got a little bit sideways, and my dad has managed to catch up to the back of him here quite comfortably. And this could be an opportunity here in the next sequence of corners where I think George is a little bit slower. This could be a nice opportunity for my dad, but then the straight George does just pull out enough of a gap. And back on board with John here. They've really closed up as a triple here. They've I thought John was going to go for it, but my dad's looking down the inside of George now as George runs wide. No, let's just sort of slide the wall up there. That's weird. George had such a good exit to that corner. I think that John's got so much more speed through this part of the track here. It's really hurting him that my dad's a little bit slow through here, because it's obviously costing him time because he's having to back off through there. He can't go flat out, and John's looking to try and go for the overtaking into the last sequence of corners again, but he just can't make it stick, and he's trying to do that inside line, and it's not really working because, well, my dad's just managing to cover it off. He's just about quick enough in a straight line that he doesn't get overtaken. So finally, are we finally going to see an overtake here? As I see a kart to the inside, I think that's John, and all the slight contact. I don't know, it's a tough one that, because of course the GoPro is much wider view than you can actually see inside the helmet. So that's an interesting one. I don't know whether my dad knew John was there, and the same once again, sort of coming across him a bit. I don't know whether that was just an aggressive move or what, but that was a little bit over and aggressive than I would have expected from my dad there. He doesn't normally do stuff like that. And then John has capitalised on that. Slow run through there, and John is finally through. That's a good overtake there from John. But yeah, I think that was a little bit of a mistake on my dad's part, sort of turning into John midway through the corner. Definitely no ill harm was intended. So good job from John there. And now he's going to try and capitalise on this and get past George. I think we've said this already a number of times. He knows he is quicker. So it's just about getting past him as quickly as possible. Is he going to look to the inside here? I don't think he's got enough straight line speed, has he? Or is he better on the brakes? They're sort of pushing each other into the braking zone one way than the next. George gets a little bit sideways on the exit, and is George going to look back to the inside line? John is defending it, and now my dad's trying to go on the outside of George. Can't make it happen, but that's great. In the space of one lap, John's overtaken 2 people there. Well, just over 1 lap, I should say, really. 1.5 laps. Really good stuff there from John. Getting the overtakes done. He just managed to get past there just about at the right time, and just about keeping his chances of a title alive here, because, you know, if he was stuck in 4th place, that was basically championship over. But if something crazy does happen in the second race of the day, John could still be crowned the 2019 kart champion. But on board with George here, he's not really losing pace with John here. I think now he's starting to sort of see his racing lines, because of course George hasn't really been following anyone in this race so far, so he hasn't really had a chance to learn. And as I said already, this is sort of his first proper season of karting with us. Once again, we realise it's on an amateur, very amateur level, but we're just having fun. And even then, George is still having to gain experience from some places. And you know, you can see John there. He's not losing that much time, so I think that does show that John wasn't getting held up that much by these guys. I think once again, my dad's probably also faster than George by a little bit, but just not by enough to make it count. And you know, George is capitalising on obviously starting on pole position, and he's going to be looking to try and get 3rd place in the championship as well. So he's got his own championship to look after here, and I think there's a small chance as well my dad could overtake George. So there's interesting tactics here, because my dad, the highest he can finish is 4th ahead of George, but George can actually finish as high as 3rd and as low as 5th. There's myself doing a lap on George there, as we've got a couple minutes of this race remaining. A little bit wayward through that sequence of corners from George, and that's going to put my dad right into the back of him here. But George has got a lot to gain, but also a lot to lose. So I don't know what's going through his head right now, whether he's thinking about that, thinking about the championship points and just trying to bag these, because there's still, as I said, a decent enough chance he could finish in 3rd place in the standings. So if you can hold off my dad for this one and maybe finish 3rd or 2nd in the next race, you know, George could be looking at a really good championship position. So, as I said, on board my dad, he's not really close enough to get an overtake done here on George. It's a shame, because you can see he's getting closer and closer and closer, but it's just not quite enough to work it all out. And yeah, it looks like he's not going to be able to get past him on this occasion, because George is now gaining speed through certain parts of the lap. And on board with myself once again, as I said, a few minutes remaining, going past John here. This is to put a lap on him. I was mentioning the outside overtake here. Do I get it done? I think because I carry more speed through the corner, I just about managed to make it work, but I was happy with that one. I seem to have really good pace throughout this race, much better than I actually thought. I guess sometimes it's hard to know, because you're not, you know, I thought I would have the pace advantage over John. I wasn't sure, but I thought I would have the pace advantage over him. But, you know, someone like Tom, who I've had really close battles here with in the past, and even Will at the same time, I knew both of those would be a really, really close battle if either of those guys came, but neither of them did. So it's always hard to judge your pace in comparison to yourself sometimes. So I was just happy when I looked at the timesheets at the end of the day, or at the end of the first race at least. I was happy to see where my pace was at. But, you know, John's still got a chance here. I mean, if there's a kart issue, I DNF from the next race, the championship's right back thrown back into his hands in a way. And of course, I've had kart issues in the past. John's had kart issues this season. You know, I think back to I think, was it Filching on one occasion? He's had some pretty big issues with this kart. At least it might have been in qualifying, but that lost him positions on the grid, which lost him time on the race. So it all happens. It's just kind of like real life motorsport. People have issues with their machinery, and sometimes that lets them down, and sometimes the driving lets people down. And I've got to say myself, sometimes this season I probably could have driven a bit better. Last time out of Filching, I think I deserved more than one victory, but I just wasn't consistent enough over 4 races to get it done. So we're closing in here. We're about to hit the 15-minute mark in this race, and you can see my dad is closing up to the back of George here. Is he going to be able to make this one stick and finally get past him? If he makes this move stick, it's basically game over for P3, the championship for George. He needs basically to finish third in every single one of these ones in the race 1, 2, and also in the fastest lap competition. If he doesn't do that, unfortunately, I don't think there are going to be enough points, for the third place in the championship, which would be nice for him. Nice way to end off the season, but he's got to earn it. So let's see whether he can do it. Last couple of corners. This will be going on to the last lap of the race, if I remember correctly. So here we are, switching one way, then the next. He's side by side. Is this going to be enough? I don't think it's going to be, but it was really good to see that George just really consistent, or not ultra consistent. Sorry, or a bit of contact there. He wasn't ultra consistent, but he was. He had good pace, and that's managed to keep him in P3 in this one. I think after that little bit of contact there, my dad has backed off, making sure that he is not going to be gaining after crashing into George a little bit there. But there's the checker flag. I take the victory. The 25 points to go along with it. On board with John. Didn't lose much time at the end there. I lapped him like 4 minutes ago or something like that. And you can see he's not that far behind. And yeah, pretty happy with that. And on the slowdown lap, I've got to say, I didn't expect to win by that much. I thought that it was going to be a bit closer than that. But maybe in the next race where John possibly won't be stuck behind George for too long if he does get overtaken at the start. Possibly it could be a closer race there, and if John can pressure me into a mistake, you never know what could happen. So it's still all up for grabs here. The last race of the season, the championship battle, it goes down to the wire. That's what we want to see. So let's have a look at the race results there on the screen. Round number 7, race number 1. I win ahead of John. 3rd place is George. A good podium for him there. 4th place is my dad, who probably would have expected to do a little bit better in that one. But it's the way it goes. You've got to be quick throughout the whole race. You can't just be quick through certain stages. And George was quick enough to keep himself ahead of my dad. And that's be very important for the championship. And also probably means my dad can't beat George in the championship now to 4th place. So it looks like it's all warming up at the top. There's still a really close championship battle on our hands here. But it looks like Tom might be secure near enough in 3rd place in the championship. George is probably just about far enough ahead of my dad that he won't be overtaken for 4th place, and my dad will be ranking up 5th place in the championship, which will probably actually be one of his worst finishes in the championship actually. That's just because it's been a really tough season for him. He normally gets more than one victory, but that one victory did come in a great race, probably the best race of the season at Filching Manor last time out. If you haven't watched that race, go back and watch it. It was really exciting. But yeah, he would have probably expected a little bit more. He's got a few podiums elsewhere. He got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 podiums outside that win so far this season. So he'll be looking to try and get at least another podium, whether that comes in this race here or in the fastest lap competition. So maybe he can think about that if he's stuck behind George for a significant amount of time. So we're going away out the pit lane for race number 2, the final race of the season. So we're just going out in race order here, and we're going out from the finishing order from the last race here. I was going to keep the pack bunched up. I think I was indicating to John there, basically, I'm watching out for those guys behind. I'm not going to go too far ahead. Basically, I was just trying to back everyone up, and by the time we got to the back straight, back everyone up, so we get a bit of temperature into the kart. I know it doesn't mean too much, but just get a bit of temperature into the kart so we can push. You can see John doing a bit of crazy weaving on the outlap here. Even though the race is technically started, we'll call this the outlap because nobody is going to be doing any overtaking in this one. So you can see just as we go down this back straight here, I was going to back off and just make sure everyone is on us here, and then pin it at the final corner and start the last race of the season. Who is going to be the champion? Is it going to be John, currently in P2, or on board with me now? Am I going to clinch my 6th Series Championship? Now, not all of them have been very easy. In fact, I think only maybe 1 or 2 of them have been down to just being lucky in terms of the amount of people attending each round. But this season, it was close between myself and Tom throughout. John, also competing in a couple more races than me, did help him out in the championship. He excelled in those races, those 3 races at Filching. Back halfway through the season, he secured pole position, or fastest lap I should say, and all 3 race victories. You know, he capitalised on that opportunity and really got the job done there with a solid amount of points. But I've got to say, this has probably been one of my best seasons in the championship. I've racked up a large number of victories here. Over 10 victories already this season. I think it's 12 going into this last race of the season. I think this could be the possible 13th. And technically the fastest lap will be counting as a race within the standings results screen. So that could be technically a 13th and 14th race, in quotation, win this season, which I'll be very happy with. Very, very happy with. And considering I missed 3 races in the middle of the season, I'll definitely take that. And the main aim is, though, to get the championship. If I score enough points, if I just basically finish this race, I win the championship. That's in the back of my mind here. But at the same time, I also want to get the victories, and I want to get my sort of stats up, because I know this is a little friendly championship, but I like to keep control of all the stats and that sort of stuff, and understand who did what in certain races in certain seasons. It's really interesting to look back at and understand whether I've been developing as a driver. I know it might sound weird, but it's nice to just sort of see if there is any improvement race upon race and year upon year. And, it's just what I like to do, really, with the championship. And obviously trying to win each race is obviously important. So, as I was saying, back about a minute ago, if I retire, though, and John manages to get to the fastest lap, well, it's all still on there. That could be a championship for John. So 1 kart failure is all that counts now between myself and the championship. So it's tough. Do I go for the victory? Do I just consolidate reasonable pace and try and bring it home? Or do I risk it all? And my mind, I was like, I'm going to risk it all and try and get this next race victory, which is maybe not the mentality you should think of, but that's what I want to do. Get another race victory, get more points, try and just do my best as possible. So that was, I'm paying a lot of money for go-karting after all. I mean, even rental karting isn't cheap, so you just want to have fun. And even though there's a little championship between all of us, I still wanted to make the most of my karting and see whether I can improve my lap times. So, we've spoken about that the championship permutation is enough there. It's basically win it or bin it for John. And for me, it's basically just finish this race and I'll win the championship, which is a nice feeling in the back of my head. But then I'm also thinking, kart failure, then I'm out. But on board with my dad here, he's been struggling to get past George for the good part of 20 minutes now, through first race and this one. So he'll be looking to try and get past him very shortly, because he'll be sick and tired of seeing the back of George's go-kart at this point. But George is making a big mistake through the last sequence of corners there. My dad is well and truly onto the back of him here. Can he get this overtake done? I think it will be deserved that my dad can get this overtake done, because he's been stuck behind George for long enough at this point. I think it'd be nice to see him get this overtake done. And George has got a bit sideways here. Could this be it? Could this finally be it? I think my dad's closer than he's ever been in to the elbow, and George has gone wide, and my dad's going to capitalise on that and get the move down the inside. And there we go, finally, after over 20 minutes of kart racing, he's managed to finally get past George there, and it was all kind of down to a George error. But I think that just sort of is the testament to how good George has been this season. He's been improving year upon year, and I'm very happy for him, because he came into this sort of year not having done much go-karting, and I've been trying to just give him a few tips here and there, but he's not really a motorsport fan all in all, so it's just nice to see him sort of just really try and just learn, and he's done a really good job. And I've got to say, some standout performances from him this year. He got 2 second places at Filching earlier on this season. That was really good. Obviously the win back at Brooklands, that was a very important one for him as well. Just solid pace throughout that whole weekend as well, getting a couple of good results in there. He's already stood on the podium here today as well, and he's trying to get that position back from my dad to try and get back on the podium for the last races of the season. So, George has just improved so much, and I think following people definitely helps him out, because he's just learning a little bit more about the racing line and how you maintain the speed through the corner. All that little stuff really does help out. But yeah, just overall really good job from George this season. I'm just really happy to see him improve so much, and hopefully going into 2020 we'll be entering into more of the rounds. It's probably going to be a bit more of a condensed championship next year. That's something I can speak about later on in this race, but whilst this battle is still going on, I just want to sort of big up George a little bit and just say congratulations to him, and I think he will have deserved this 4th place in the championship this year. Of course, we haven't had as many competitors this year as we would have liked. It's the way it goes, unfortunately. Motorsport, even karting's not exactly cheap, as there's a little bit of contact there. That sort of came out of nowhere, hence the commentary. But nonetheless, that was coming out a bit of nowhere from my dad. He made a few mistakes there, and George was close enough to go for a move down the inside. Didn't quite work out there. Racing incident, in my opinion there. My dad was already far enough through the corner that he could obviously commit. But my thoughts are it's nice to see George going for an overtake like that. I don't think it would have been in his mind to do something like that earlier on in the season, so really good to see on George's part. But yeah, 4th place in the championship for George, that'd be nice for him. Nice little trophy at the end of the season to take home, and overall good stuff. And I think, as I was saying earlier on, I think my dad will be slightly disappointed with his season so far. There are certainly some races where he could have scored some more points. Definitely at Brooklands, I think that's a bit of a bogey track for my dad. He doesn't score too many points there, even though he did get 2 podiums at the early part of the season. Also, a slight mistake there from George. Yeah, even though he did get 2 podiums back then, they were sort of because of the grids were in his favour. But I think maybe next time we go to Brooklands, I'll see a bit more pace from my dad. I'm hoping we will, at least, because I think he's got the opportunity to do good performances there. I mean, he was the only person back in the second round of the season not to get a victory, and I managed to get a double victory because of it. So my thoughts are that my dad could definitely have maybe got a few more points this season, probably a victory at Brooklands. But then again, it was offset with a great performance in that 3rd race last time out of Filtering Manor. That was really, really great. Obviously, a lot of unlucky nature going his way this season, I was saying. But it's really good to see him get that victory, and that was on pure speed and pure skill, really, because I was giving him a bit of a push up the straights from now and again. But that's just because I was trying to help improve my position as well. You can see George's hands maybe getting a little bit achy. This, we're looking at nearly 30 minutes of racing at this point. No, it's not nearly 30 minutes. Sorry, nearly 25 minutes of racing at this point, and George's arms maybe slightly aching at this point. You can see the way he's holding the wheel, maybe not quite the same way as it was earlier on, where he was full of energy. But yeah, it's interesting to look at people's seasons. It was very close at the start of the season, wasn't it, between myself and Tom? It was 2 victories apiece in the opening round at Filching, very, very even on pace. And even the last round at Filching, actually, I think Tom might have outscored me in terms of points. And as we were saying, he was, if he was going to enter this round, he was still within a chance of winning this championship. Yes, he was quite far behind, but that was just the way it was. He finished 2nd a lot of times this season. Lost a lot of points. The second time at Filching, where I got 3 victories, and he finished 2nd every race. And at Bayford as well, when I finished on the top step of the podium 3 times. And Tom only managed to get 2nd all those times as well. So, there were just a few occasions where Tom was lacking that raw speed on some occasions. But I think the Filching rounds, mostly at least, he was on form, and he was scoring good victories. And I said, he's had a few victories this season. It doesn't beat his record. I think his record was 2017. He actually beat me in wins for that season, but I was a little bit more consistent over the year, clinching the championship. But yeah, Tom's had 5 victories this season. Quite a lot of second places. I think over 10 second places this season, which of course he won't look back on too fondly. Obviously, you always want to be the victor. But yeah, I think you've got to say Tom also drove a great season. But I think his peak, he'd probably say himself, his peak championship year so far would have been 2017, where he was very close to the championship into the last race of the season. And I think that was really good, actually. If you haven't watched the 2017 season, go back and watch it. It's all up on YouTube. I'm actually, the standings, it was very close at the end there. 241 points to myself and 223.5 to Tom. And I just sort of took it easy in the last round of the season, because I knew just consistent points were going to be able to give me a chance of the championship. Whereas Tom sort of swept up at the end of the season in a way. 3 victories on the bounce to end the year. But overall, I think it's just nice to reflect on a good season once again. I really enjoy this. I love producing these videos, and even though they were somewhat delayed because of my university year. I'm really happy that I managed to get back onto these and just start producing them every couple of weeks for you, because it was just really, really good fun, and I love just producing them, mostly for myself to watch back of them in the future, but also just because I hope that it's just something a little bit different to watch. So, look back on this year, favourite moment personally, well, I think my triple victory at Filching, the third round of the season, was going for the quadruple. That was a good moment. This pace here at Lydd was also good. Bayford, good memories as well. But some just good battles. I mean, I keep highlighting it, that race at Filching Manor last time out when my dad won. That was a fantastic race, one I'll never forget. And just overall, just so many great battles this season. So there's quite a few moments to highlight. But I think if I wrap up this championship here today, this would be a good moment for me, and probably the standout one. So on board with my dad here, he's just been lapped by myself. As I said, I was so happy with my pace here today. I don't normally rate my performances, but I think this was definitely one of the best driving moments I'd had in kart for a long time. It just all seemed to come together. The kart felt really good underneath me, and yeah, I was just really happy with the pace. So, nonetheless, we haven't got that long to go in this race now, less than 5 minutes. Am I going to be crowned champion for the 6th time? So, if you've been watching the championship for a long time, you'll realise it started back in 2014. Many have come and gone in that time. We've had some great regulars. We've had some people come into the championship to really liven it up, like John and Tom L, really doing a good job to come into the championship and really improve it. And someone like George has definitely got the potential now to go into 2020 and fight for a top 3 in the championship. I think now, having driven all of these tracks properly and realising the limits, we'll be looking to go for a top 3 position in the championship next year. Maybe winning the championship slightly beyond him. You know, I don't want to discount it, but it might be slightly beyond him. But nonetheless, I think very exciting times for George. I keep saying very exciting times, but I just love doing these races, and I hope that comes across. Even though we all understand 100% this is all totally amateur, just for fun racing, but just make a little championship out of it does make it a little bit more memorable at the end of the year. And I like to buy trophies for everyone as well, just to sort of put a full stop on the end of the year and just say thanks guys, I appreciate your time and coming go-karting and all that sort of stuff. But on board with John now, on board with myself as we try and get past John side by side through here. I'm going to get the overtake done around the outside. It was quite risky. It could have ended in disaster, especially if John just a little cheeky punt and he could have ended up pushed me off into the gravel and he could have won the championship. But you know, he's not that sort of driver. I think John realised that the last second wasn't there today, and I don't know whether that was down to the car or whether that might have been down to just me being on it. I've got to say that, as I said already, this was one of my best performances, and I'm definitely looking back on this as a nice moment. So maybe this is the best moment of the season so far, this pure pace. Really nice to see. I mean, definitely further ahead than I would have expected. And you know, at Bayford I was making quite a few mistakes. I wasn't truly happy with my performance, but this one I've got to say, just really, really nice and happy with where I was at. But obviously, I compare that into relation to the rest of the people in the championship, not to professional kart races that come here every race weekend, who would obviously demolish me. But nonetheless, just a great season. Hopefully you've enjoyed the videos. We appreciate the support, and hopefully into the future, just more great seasons ahead, hopefully. Of course, we've got a big sort of milestone coming upon us in the next couple of years. This was, of course, the 6th season, but we're going to the next couple of years, and the 10th season is upon us. I mean, okay, it's still 4 years away, but nonetheless, it's still a big milestone that's going to be big for the championship. We're all determined to make it to that milestone, to just sort of cap it off and say what a good championship it was. But there we are. You saw the checkered flag. That has confirmed me as the champion for 2019. Thank you so much to all of the people that took part in this championship. I really appreciate it. It does mean a lot to me that everyone takes their time and spends their money on this little fun thing I want to do every now and again at go-kart tracks, and I appreciate it. All the people, the tracks, all the workers, all the marshals, all the people that dedicate themselves to letting people have these opportunities to go racing, even on an amateur level. We appreciate it massively, so thank you. I don't think I've ever really said that too much, but massively appreciate everything the marshals do, all the people that run these tracks and just work at these tracks do. They do a great job, especially here, Lydd, Lydd, Brooklands. Actually, shout out to all of the tracks. They're all great. They're all individually great, and I appreciate all of them because of that. Lydd is a very, very good facility as well, and I definitely recommend going there yourself if you haven't. But there we are. Championship over and done with. Very happy with this season. I got the fastest lap as well, so just overall a really good season for me, and I appreciate everyone sticking with me and enjoying the series. So that was, I think maybe for me a record amount of victories in a season. That was my 14th victory actually. I've just totted it up. 14th victory of the season. Technically including the ones which are technically down as wins in qualifying and fastest lap competitions this year in the longer races. But yeah, really, really good time. I really, really enjoyed that, and congratulations to John actually as well, because he stepped up this year. You can see him just there. His hands are a little bit tired after that, but he stepped up this year. He put the pressure on me in this championship, and just fair play. He did a really, really solid job, and I'm happy to see him, get the performances this year, because, I'd say in previous seasons he maybe didn't extract the potential a lot of the time, but this year he's done a lot better, and I think he's got to give himself a pat on the back with that. As I said already, that's his 5th win. He's had 5 wins this season, been on the podium all but 4 races. Just fair play. Really good stuff, John, this year. Well done. There's the results of the last race of the season. I win over John. 2nd place is for him, and in the championship as well, actually, to be fair. 3rd place goes to my dad, who beat George finally in the end. He managed to get past him. So there are the results for the race, and then also we've got to mention the points for the fastest lap, which are awarded. It's basically the same points that would be awarded at Brooklands, but also for the Bayford quali round, and also for Lydd fastest lap. And that's how those fastest lap points look. So 8 points for myself, 6 points for John, 5 points for my dad, and 4 points for George. That's because obviously the longer races typically don't get a qualifying session, or if you do, the points go there. If you don't get a qualifying session, they go to the fastest lap, and that's how they look for Lydd. Wow, what a really great season. Really, really enjoyed it, as I said already. Just so many thanks to so many people. It's hard to comprehend all the people that have made it happen. And there's the final championship standings. 330 points. I think that's got to be up there with the most amount of points I've scored in a season. I think my record was one of the early seasons, actually. Yeah, slightly beaten by the 2014 standings, where I finished on 333 points. But I think there were more races back that year. I wasn't quite as good that year in terms of overall standings. 320 in 2015, so it's up there with some of the best amount of points I've got over a season, but definitely John's best season. I mean, we look back to 2018 with a similar amount of races. 2018, John scored 181 points. This year, he scored 288. You've just got to say, great job there from John. He really, really has improved, and it's nice to see. Tom finishing on 234 points. As I said already, he came into the last round. If you did enter with a slight chance of the championship, but that's why that gap looks a little bit exaggerated. Myself and Tom had competed in each round together for all of them, except this last round, so it was going to be a fair fight if it was so. But I do manage to come out on top, which I'm very happy about. And then 4th place George, great season. He entered every single race like John. You can see, considering John has obviously got more experience, finishing 78 points behind John. Not that disrespectful whatsoever, really. 3/4 of John's points, pretty much. So that's good to see. My dad nearly managed to catch George, even though he didn't do all of the races. My dad missed out on 4 races at the start of the season. didn't quite manage to beat George at the end there, but it was close. He was maybe 2 race results better in certain races away from getting P4 in the championship. 6th was Connor after only doing 2 rounds, and likewise Kalen doing 2 rounds on 44 points. That's it. That's the 2019 championship completed. There is actually more racing to come this season because we did do a summer series and also we did a winter championship, or we haven't done the winter championship yet. So look forward to that one. Who's going to be the champion? Thanks for watching. All the best. It's been Alex Amade. Goodbye.